Before we get further into functions, we need to discuss function notation towards the bottom of page 3. So the first bullet point there says that we write y equals f of x to show that y is a function of x. So this is a biggie, okay? You need to remember now and for the rest of this course and in other math courses that y means the same thing as f of x. So for example, I think at the very beginning of this section, I made up a function. It was something like f of x is equal to 2x minus 5, okay? So that's your function notation when you see that f of x, but from this statement, what this tells us is that f of x can be replaced with y. Okay, so this means the same thing as y equals 2x minus 5. Okay, so you absolutely must know that. I'm putting a star here. Okay, y is the same thing as f of x. Okay, the way we read this, we read y equals f of x as y equals f of x. Okay, now every function has a name. If you have something like we have here, y equals f of x, the name of the function is f. So this particular function that I made up, f of x equals 2x minus 5, it also has the function named f, but you could certainly see other letters be used for the names of functions. So for example, I'll use another color here. Maybe we have g of x is equal to 1 minus x squared. So for this particular function, its name would be g. Okay. So a couple of other words you might hear floating around with functions: independent variable and dependent variable. So when you're working with a function, usually your variables are going to be x and y. So as far as which one is which, x is going to be the independent variable because we have complete control over x. We get to pick what x is, okay? And then we plug it in, and then out comes the y value or the output. So basically y depends, the value of y depends on that value of x that we plugged in. And I'll write that down here. Let me make it a little clearer here. Basically here, y depends on the value of x that is input. Okay, so that's why y is considered the dependent variable, because it totally depends on what x value has been plugged in. Okay, last bullet point here, it says think of a function f as a rule. Basically, the function f tells us what to do to the input value, remember, which is x. Okay, so the function f tells us what to do to the input value x. Think of f as a process or rule. Okay, so if I go back to the function I made up, f of x is equal to 2x minus 5. If you pick any x value, whatever you plug in, this function is a rule that tells us what to do with that input. You're going to take your x value, you're going to follow the order of operations. So you would first multiply that x value by 2 and then take that result and subtract 5. Okay, if we look at this other function, g of x, okay, if you're this function g, if I take an x value and plug it in, again, I would follow the order of operations. You would first square that input value and then take that result and do 1 minus the result to get your output. Okay, so a function is nothing more than a rule.